Hello, everybody. Jill Allen here from Jill Allen and Associates. And I am so excited to have Mari Sawtelle, the founder and president of Mary's List, here on my third episode of Hey Docs. Today, we are going to be talking about how you do not need to be the laughing stock of inventory management. And I just want you to know it is definitely easier than you think. I am so excited to introduce to you my good friend, Mari Sawtelle, the owner of Mary's List. Over Mary's 30-year career as an award-winning sales rep and trainer for 4 of the largest orthodontic companies, Mary became a master of organization and inventory systems and learned the ins and outs of manufacturers and distributors. She was recruited by a 12-doctor multi-practice group to serve as director of business development and purchasing, where she saved the company over $1 million in their first year. Mary wanted every orthodontist to be able to benefit in the same way. So she took her orthodontic experience and ordering experience and founded Mary's List. Mary's List is now the largest orthodontic buying group in the country, focused on helping doctors save both money and time through effective inventory management. Welcome, Mary.
Hi, Jill. Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. I am so excited that we are getting to do this, and we're just gonna have a little chit chat here. One of the things that I really want to dive into, it's great to kind of hear, the intro component, but I really want you to tell me a little bit more in your own words, like, how did you get to where we're at today? And how did you know that our industry needed something like this?
I think the offices that I walked into, I saw that there was a need. And when I got recruited to actually be in an office and I was opening offices and I saw how many hats the doctors wore and the systems that, we had, I realized that orthodontists tend to focus on the big items and try to save on those and delegate the rest. And because orthodontists see patients for 1.5 to 2 years, it's a lot of visits with a lot of staff. And so the multi-practice especially is going to go through a lot of consumables.
Right.
And if you're overpaying, it really, really adds up. We ran QuickBooks on everything.
Yeah.
And I very quickly saw, just shaving $1 off of something you use a lot, or $5, the magnitude of how big it was. So from there, we started the consulting company in 2012, and we spent 2.5 years. We analyzed 45 practices.
Wow.
We learned a lot, and I believe helped them a lot. And from there, I felt, we could take it a step further. And so we launched the Study Club and Buying Group at the AAO in May of 2015.
Wow. How exciting. And this is what and why I wanted to start Hey Docs, because I feel like there's so many people in our industry that really do have this why, like how did you get here and what did you see that our industry needed? And I think that this Mary's List is, something that I work with all the time with my clients. And I just feel like it's such a huge asset. And, it's hard to believe that we didn't have a Mary's List, 20 years ago, in our industry, or even 15 years ago. So that's super exciting. So today we're going to kind of break this down, because a lot of my audience is, younger doctors that have done acquisitions, doctors that are thinking of doing startups. And I really want to just kind of talk about 2 groups today: acquisitions, doctors that have, went in and done an acquisition, and then doctors who are doing startups. And if you don't mind, I want to start with acquisitions. I know that some of the things you're going to talk about will 100% apply to existing practices as well. But I know that oftentimes practices can really get wrapped up in the ordering, right? And as you were saying, a lot of times our doctors focus on the big things, and they're like, oh, you can handle these little things. But we know that they all come together, and a lot of times it's kind of that last can that gets kicked down the road, because really nobody's got time, to be doing ordering, but everybody's really concerned about it when we've run out of the things that we need. So when you think, and when you were kind of going through this, and if you were to have some really good advice, and again, we're going to start with acquisitions here. Can you tell me a little bit about, do you think that, if somebody's really thinking about ordering, what I tend to think is a lot of times it has to do with they probably don't have systems in place. And so can you kind of tell me a little bit about what does that mean? And, how do you get a system in place before you just go in and grab all the books and start ordering, or, start surfing through everything? Like what do you need to do to set yourself up for success? And I think especially, I'm going to pull this back to, an acquisition. Let's just say you're a new doc that's maybe purchased a practice, come in and you have in your mind what you think you want. You're trying to evaluate what they have. Maybe you've got a team member that can help you. Maybe you don't. So I'm gonna let you give me some good little pearls here for everyone listening.
Okay. And we do have a lot of members that have just recently bought a practice and a lot of startups. And what I think the doctors need to realize and do from the very beginning is pick a person in the office, give them enough time, and you want to find the right person, somebody that's highly organized, has good computer skills, wants to do the job, is interested in saving the practice money and creating good systems. What we did when we first walked into the practices, the first thing we looked at was storage. And most of the offices that we walked into that were acquisitions had things stuck away in drawers and cabinets and a lab and whatever,
It's
I call
like grandma's attic, right?
Exactly. Orthodontic Hall of Fame.
Door number one,
right.
Door number two.
You got to make room. And so, I mean, one of the practices that I was in, it was a big 3-doctor practice. And the person doing the ordering, she was great. She was a wonderful assistant. She just didn't have time to do the job, literally. And they had a lot of satellites. So when I went in there and I had my team with me and we looked at their storage, one entire wall, they had a big storeroom, but one entire wall was completely filled up with files. And I knew the practice was paperless. And so I went to the office manager and I said, how often do you go to these files? And she said, never. And I was like, okay. I said, do you have storage units? And she kind of laughed and she said, yeah, we have 3. So I said, okay. I said, we're going to make some room because, they would get things in and they'd still be in the boxes and they didn't realize they needed something or if they were out of something because they hadn't even taken out of the boxes. So we spent literally a day taking the files to the storage. And then we also got on the floor and in the storage and we looked at everything that they had, and anything that was expired, we had to toss because they weren't rotating the inventory, unfortunately. So that's why it's really important. And we also, looked at the areas around the chairs. We call that on deck as far as what we could store in those areas. And there was stuff in there we threw away. I mean, we had a big garbage can that we actually threw away. And this one practice, because their system was not what it needed to be, they were in a program where they bought brackets and they got free product. And we actually audited all the invoices because what they were doing is they would put in an order for 1 or 2 items, just, 1 spool of chain or 2 boxes of elastics. And sometimes the shipping was more than the product.
Oh, gosh.
So we actually added it up. And in 1 year at this one company, the shipping was over $4,000.
Oh my goodness. And when you're looking for those pennies on that P&L statement and where you can save, I mean, that's easy. That's low hanging fruit right there.
Exactly.
Right?
And so, I think that if you start there, as far as clearing out, making room, getting a good ordering person, from there, you want to create a good list. You need to have, if it's an acquisition, somebody that's interested in taking the reins and open to change so that they're not just going to go down the same path that they've been going down. And then start utilizing the reps at the companies that will help you cross-reference things. And so you can find opportunities to save that way. But that's kind of a starting point is, to getting organized. Most offices that I was in actually had a good amount of storage. Some of them just weren't using it well.
They just didn't recognize it
Yeah.
because they were using it for other things. So
Right.
if I kind of hear what you're saying, first, take inventory of everything. So if you're a new doc, you've done an acquisition, come in there, maybe dedicate a day to just going through everything that you can find. So from the back storage area to the drawers to what's up on the top shelf in the lab, like go through it all, kind of get an understanding of all of the product, get rid of anything that's old because you just can't use it. Get
Right.
rid of it.
Right.
And then make sure that you've got room. And I would assume like what you're talking about is like something where you can visually as a team see when you're going to need product. Is that kind of what the reasoning is behind what, why we need to make room for storage and we don't
Right.
just have things tucked away in the back closet and then under the chair number one and, in the bottom drawer at the front desk. I've
Right.
seen it all. I'm sure you have too.
Oh, yeah. Well, and if you have a good system, then, and if you're changing things over, once you do, then it's just reordering and it's really not hard at all.
Yeah.
It's a little work in the beginning, but once you get it dialed in, then it's really simple.
Yeah. So I know I get asked this a lot, but a lot of times my docs are like, "Hey, Jill, like how much should I order? How much should I have on hand?" And I know I kind of have an answer, but you're our expert here. So what do you advise? What do you advise, our docs, what's too much? What's too little?
Well, too much is having more product that you would use before it expires, obviously. When you think about retail stores, people that have retail stores go to market twice a year. That's it. They order everything. And then it's shipped to them. They say how they want it delivered. And I'm sure sometimes they have to adjust it, but they don't order constantly. And if a practice doesn't have a good system in place, and it's not just putting the orders in or having ordering software or templates or what have you, it's actually having your floor organized and your on deck and your storage. If you don't have that organized, that's where it's going to throw you off and you'll run out of things. And so the practice where I was, we had 8 offices and we had a great system that we established. And what we did is on Friday afternoon, we didn't see patients. Every patient chair in the office had a dedicated team member. So before they left for the lunch hour and headed out on Friday, everybody was required to stock their chairs.
I love this. This is such a great pearl.
They stock it from the on deck.
Yes.
And then from the on deck, you stock storage to on deck. And you take it from the front of your storage and then move it forward. So when new product comes in, you put it in the back of storage. That way, when I was talking about rotating, you never run out.
Yes.
We try to educate the doctors and the team members to not order more than once a month. Fill in orders. We have quite a few companies where the shipping is free, but if it's not, and you're ordering too often, it can really cost your practice. So if you can get it to once a month, it's great. If the doctor is open to it and you have enough storage, you get it to once a quarter. If you had been doing it once a month, you just cut off 8 ordering cycles of labor time and shipping cost.
Yeah, I love it.
Quarterly is so simple. Another pearl that we share is if you don't have a ton of storage space, you don't have to really stock up on all the big items like gloves and wipes for 3 months. You can set those up on auto ship.
Oh.
And you can set them so they just come as you need them. You can adjust it if you need to. And so we did that with our gloves. At one of the practices, it was 23 chairs and 3 doctors. And that's what we did is we staged when the big stuff would come in. So we've never run out, but it didn't take up all our storage. And if you do set up futures, we have companies on the list that give you an extra 5% discount when you set it up that way.
I love that. I love that. I've got a dog food company. I've got two very, very large dogs, and there's nothing better than knowing that I don't have to remember and I don't have to store all of those big bags of food either. And I think it's the same thing. It's such a great idea. And, because I do a lot of startups, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in startups, but we're trying to utilize our office, to the best of our ability. And we just don't build tons and tons of room for storage anymore. So I think that this is fantastic that companies are willing to do that. And if you can just manage that a little bit, I love that.
It makes it really easy.
Yeah. And I especially love the idea of getting to quarterly orderings. I mean, that's usually what I tell my docs is don't have more than 3 months of inventory on hand. And, I 100% agree with you. If we can use our non-doctor days and have a team member that's really got this organized where they can sit down and spend an hour or two at most, probably getting these orders in place and ready to go. And they don't have to really think about it again, for the next quarter. Just imagine what that frees that team member up for the other things in the office. Maybe that allows them to be a digital coordinator or some other things that we could be utilizing them for. So
Right.
I love that.
Stocking the chairs, when each team member does it with their chair, it doesn't take but a couple of minutes. I mean, literally, they were done in 10. And if all the chairs are stocked every week, if your on deck is stocked every week, if your storage doesn't go past the halfway point before it's time to reorder, you're never going to run out.
Yeah.
And so, by doing it that way and, constantly managing it that way, that, your system won't be broken, basically.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. It's such a good idea. Now I have had, I will tell you, I've had an office where we had the hoarder assistant, that loved to stock their drawer, but loved to overstock their drawer. So, we do have to pay attention to that too in our offices. And, maybe every once in a while, just kind of, whoever is managing that clinic, take a walk through and make sure that we don't have, in case I run out of 5 tubes of glue, incident. But I think that's just a really, really great tip that people can really take away from that. So when we're looking at this and we're saying, okay, we could order once a month, maximum once a quarter, what does overhead look like? Like what, as a newer doctor, like, what does that look like? And I'm going to tell you, docs out there, your overhead may look different than the previous doc's overhead, depending upon what you're doing. And if you have, really working to get a handle on your ordering. So what does that kind of look like to you, Mary? How would you talk to docs about that?
Well, the average orthodontist supply overhead, and this is according to the research we did, as well as Chris Benson, they run about a 10.9% supply cost.
Right.
And so what that means is if your production is $1 million, you're spending $100,000 on supplies. Mm-hmm. For an example, if you're running a 10% supply cost and you just cut it in half, that's $50,000. Yes. And so it's not pocket change. I tell the doctors, this really adds up.
Yes.
And a lot of my members know that because we have a lot of members that run a 3 to 4% supply cost after they, join us. Yep. And so it is important. I have one doctor in particular that he actually orders one time a year. Yeah. And his supply cost is about 3%.
Wow.
And, he is saved so much money that he says basically the savings is going to put his kids through college. And I tell doctors, if you save $20 or $30 or $50,000 a year on things that are going to end up in the garbage can and put that in a 401k and give it 30 years to cook, you're going to have a nice retirement.
Yeah.
And
I love
so,
that.
it isn't just top line, it's bottom line too.
Yeah, exactly. And I do want to, just make sure my docs understand too that, when we're looking at our profit and loss statements and we're looking at overhead for lab, we're not talking about your digital lab. So we're not talking about if you're doing, custom brackets or custom aligners, not those lab costs. We're talking about your fixed costs that are coming in your disposables and, all of those different things.
Correct. Correct.
So I love that. I think that that's such a good number to be shooting for, but also to understand that, you know, this is again, I like to call it low hanging fruit. If we can get a team member that understands this, if we can get a team that understands how, you know, maybe paying attention to, you know, how many things we drop on the ground and how much, you know, we don't rotate and, you know, or do rotate, you know, how often we order, are we paying shipping, are we not, can really make a difference to your bottom line. So now let's talk just a little bit about, so how do you manage, how do you build an accurate ordering list? And, you know, how do you do that with future growth in mind? You know, how do docs kind of get a handle on this, or their ordering team members get a handle on this?
Well, I mean, if your practice grows 10%, you just raise the stock that you're ordering 10% to cover it. I think as far as a list and putting it together, if you're starting from scratch, what we did at the practice where I was is we got all the products, you know, so we were aware of everything we have. And then we just did it in Google Docs, and we have a tab for each company that goes A to Z. And then on the first tab, for example, if you were going to buy from, say, AmTouch, because it's an A, then we would list the products alphabetically, A to Z, with the description. That's easiest to find them that way. And then put part number and then the current price. And then you just do that by company. And so you have it all, you know, in a nice place that anybody could go to, because Google, as you know, Google Docs, anybody could log in the office and see that somebody's out sick. We always had a backup person do the, you know, ordering, that knew how to jump in just in case the main person that did it, if they were in a car accident or got COVID or having a baby, you know, that was my fear, is some of those people not being there. And so we always cross-trained and had a backup person. But I think if you do it that way, if you have it in Google Docs, if you do decide that, you know, you want to use ordering software, some offices want to do it, some don't. But if you have it in Google Docs, a lot of the companies can just upload that data.
Oh, great. Wow, that's wonderful. That's really, really good to know. And I 100% agree with you. If you can have it digital, I think that's great. I mean, I've been in this industry for over 30 years now. I remember the spiral notebook and, you know, or the recipe card, you know, you alphabetize it, you know, A, B, C, D, pull out your recipe card, fill in, you know, when did you order? When did you last order? How much was the price? You know, so we've really evolved a lot. And I think that as much as we can do digitally just helps us. And, you know, how wonderful is that if you do decide to move to some type of a platform where you can just upload it versus having to have somebody manually put in all that information. So I love that. So tell me a little bit about, because this is probably one of the number one questions I get asked is, well, hey, Jill, what's the benefit of me joining a buyer's group versus just buying directly from, you know, the sales guy that keeps wanting to take me to lunch? He seems like a really nice guy. Don't you think because he's nice, I'm going to get a better deal than being in a sales group? So a buyer's group. So tell me a little bit about that. You know, what do you think docs need to know about that?
Well, I know that there's a lot of good ordering people out there, and they do try to negotiate on their own. And some of them are great shoppers, but they just don't have the buying power to get the deepest discounts. Some of our members that have small practices have said it's actually more important for them to be in a group like this because they don't get the bigger discounts that bigger practices get. And so, you know, that's one of the things I think sometimes people will ask me is, am I going to save enough? And when we go back and look after a year, if you use the companies in our group, you're going to save. There's just no way. I mean, I tell doctors, it's almost like you have to play dodgeball now because we have so many wonderful companies. We vet the companies carefully. We don't allow gray market on the list. We expect excellent service, exclusive discounts. And a lot of our discounts are exclusive to our group because I started the company 10 years ago and we have those agreements in place. So,
yeah. That's great. I think that's wonderful. And I don't get asked this a lot, but I do get asked it. what's the difference in an ortho exclusive group versus, one of the GP groups out there? Aren't docs going to get the same discounts?
Well, the GP groups, for one thing, are going to have different products and different companies. There's a lot of companies that general dentists use that orthodontists don't use.
Right.
And then there's a lot of companies that orthodontists use that a general dentist wouldn't use. Mm-hmm. And so since we focus on ortho, and that's what we are as an ortho exclusive group, we try to think outside the box and look at everything an orthodontist would need to run their practice, to help it be more efficient, to, be able to save and get quality products. And so as we're looking at adding companies, as we have discounts with consultants like you. Yeah. Smile Suite. We just recently added them, and we listen to the members as far as what companies they want added. And so, we have discounts on things like that. Most ordering platforms don't have those kinds of discounts on things like that. They just have product. And we try to think of everything an orthodontist could possibly need. So for example, a startup, they have a break room, they need a refrigerator or a microwave or a dishwasher if they want a dishwasher, and televisions. We have discounts on all of those things.
Yeah.
And our members that have actually built homes have said our prices and our discounts on all those things actually beat what their builders are able to.
That's wonderful. And I think, this is a really good segue into startups, because knowing that, I primarily focus on startups, and the acquisitions, but this is, your group is, something that I talk about every single time with my startups, because I feel like there are such deep discounts that can be, attained, especially in our big ticket, items. And when we've got such tight budgets, if we know that we can go to one place and, get these really deep discounts, really what that does for us is that helps us have more money for marketing, which is what we need to get those practices off the ground. So let's talk a little bit about startups, because it is a totally different ball game when we think about, that one doc coming in, maybe with one employee, maybe. And, they're saying, hey, I need to get started with my ordering. I need to know what to order. I need to kind of know how to set this up. And then, kind of from a cash flow standpoint, how do I protect my cash flow? Because that's, anybody who's worked with me knows, it's all about the budget. And, we are just working so hard just to stay within that budget and keep them safe so that they've got their working capital to only use in an emergency as we're moving through that year. So let's kind of switch gears and talk about startups a little bit. Do you have any good pro tips for any of my startup docs out there, or, best practices that green newbie team members should put in place to assist with their ordering?
Okay. Well, when a doctor calls us and they're a startup, I generally ask them when they plan to open and if they've signed their lease, because leases do fall through.
Yes.
And so once the lease is signed, there's a lot of planning. And even if they're not ordering for 2 or 3 or 4 months, if something is back ordered, they may need to get the order in sooner. If they're trying to decide on X-ray, they have time to do their homework before they actually order it. But then they also need, to have the walls up before it can be installed. So it all plays in as far as timing. But I think that with startups, if doctors don't overstock in the beginning, order what you need as far as instruments and, pliers and cassettes and things for sterilization, all the things in the clinic, but you don't need to order a year's worth out of the gate.
Right.
And sometimes doctors just don't know yet which bracket company they want to use. So they may want to try a few before they place a big grad order.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies, will let them place a smaller, like mini grad before they place their big one. I do tell doctors that if they're going to do aligners, of course, they'll need a scanner. If it's Invisalign, it has to be the iTero. If it's another modality, any scanner they can order. A lot of our doctors have ordered the Medit because it can be used on anybody, and it doesn't have the monthly recurring, and the tips can be sterilized up to 100 times per tip. And so, plus it's less expensive. And so a lot of doctors have looked at that and have ordered that in the beginning. We try to guide them and do a coaching call, and then turn them over to you a lot of times if they don't come from you. But it's interesting because startups, it is more work, for us to help a startup, but we love doing it because if you are with the practice in the beginning and you help them develop and you grow together, they become a wonderful client, a wonderful referral source. And it's interesting because when COVID happened, I kind of panicked and I thought, oh, what's going to happen to my company? When the offices were shut down. And what actually turned out to our benefit, I think, is doctors for the first time weren't glued to patients. So they were actually in our portal and seeing more of what we do.
Yes.
And when COVID happened, I can't tell you how many of our members said, you guys are awesome. We haven't run out of anything. We never had to worry about getting, level 3 masks or N95s or gloves. We always were able to keep them supplied. And the other thing that I saw when COVID happened is the startups, and I don't know if you saw this or not, Jill, they kind of went flat. And now we're just so busy. I think people were waiting to open offices when the whole heyday of COVID was going on.
Well, that and our bank stopped lending. So, we were doing the money dance around which bank is handing out money and, running from one to the other. So I can tell you that's what happened is, everything went, it got a little difficult. I was definitely working hard to make sure that we got funding for those startups. But you're right, everything has really broken loose, for sure. And I do want to just kind of circle back around to something you said, working with startups, one of the things is it's so important that we do understand, especially when we're looking at design of an office. And, when we're signing that lease, we're usually fairly far into the design of the office and we're getting into mechanical engineered plans. And one of the big things that we need for our mechanical engineered plans is a lot of times the spec sheets for some of the equipment that we're going to be ordering. And I think that has been such a benefit, with a lot of the companies on your list having, again, kind of one place that we can go to. Because if I need to know, all right, we're going to use, the Vatek machine from Voxel, and we're going to order our chairs from Ross Orthodontics, or we're going to do this, or we're going to do that. The companies are great to be able to give us our spec sheets, even if we aren't ready to place the order yet, just to help facilitate that we keep moving forward with what we're doing and what we need to do so that we don't miss our timelines to make sure that we can have that practice open on time. So I think that's just another benefit to having kind of this one area with a lot of options, but also I think, speaking to the companies that are on the group, just super helpful people that really do want to help, companies that are really out there to help young doctors and existing doctors as well. So I think that's wonderful. So again, kind of the same thing with acquisitions. Anything different we have to think about when we think about quantity and not overspending? I know, like I have provided in the portal, like for startups, I actually have kind of an overview of an ordering list of, items. How many pliers should you be ordering? How many sets of different things? I kind of have an overview of that. But do you have any additional suggestions, maybe on appropriate quantities and how we don't overspend, even though we're excited to be opening up our practice, again, that money only goes so far.
Right. Well, I mean, you certainly want to have enough for your patient flow. And so as far as, giving a number of how much to buy, you can't really cookbook that unless you know how many active patients the doctor has. So you have to kind of gauge it off of that and have a good enough amount so that as long as it takes for it to go back into sterilization, you have enough coming back out. Yep. And so, the levels are going to vary depending on, how many active patients you're seeing.
Yeah. And tell me if you think this is a good gauge. I usually tell my startups, again, when we're first starting out, order enough to get your price break, if you're looking at certain items. But, if we think about it, we're starting with 1 or 2 or 3 starts a month as we're getting going. And, we're just not going to have a lot. So don't overstock your shelves. You've got
Right.
plenty of time to do the ordering. So do what you need to get maybe the basic discounts that you need, but don't get caught up in, oh my gosh, if I just order 10, cases of gloves, I'm going to save $1,500. Well, you're going to have those 10 cases of gloves maybe for the next 3
I would
years.
put them on auto ship and get the extra 5% discount. And then you pay as you go. The thing about when you do it in auto ship is, you get the price that day. If it goes up or down, the price may go up or down, but you'll still get the extra discount.
Oh.
And so, like what you just said, depending on the quantity to get the discount, an example is like Euphrates. They're, very often have a buy, get free. And so if it's buy 6 pliers, get 2 free, you want to for sure do that, to take advantage of that.
Yeah, that's great. And that gets us to what I consider to be our minimum order that we want anyways for a startup. So that's beautiful. So I know I'm going to circle back around a minute. You said something about gray market, but I don't think I've heard that before.
Really?
So yeah, I know, right? Jill,
it's amazing.
How is that possible? Tell me what that means.
I do hear daily people that have never heard of it and don't really know what it is. And it really is, in the last, I'd say 5 years, last just a couple years, I'm seeing more and more of it. And what it basically means is it might be like an ordering platform where you go and you shop and you buy from a whole bunch of different companies. And as an example is, say they sell Cava wipes, and I'm looking and I go to look at the name of the company that they're coming from. If they're not an authorized dealer of Kerr, that means it's gray market. And so what that can mean, and I've seen this several times, is if it's ordered off a platform and it's a gray market product, and we had recently something we investigated and we could tell by the lot number when we went back to the dealers on our list, they had gone to the manufacturer. The lot number was from 2009. Expiration said 2022.
Interesting.
So I knew that couldn't have come from a company on my list, because that's basically what gray market is. It could be counterfeit. It could be expired. They changed the date. And so that's why you want to be sure you're buying from authorized dealers, authorized distributors, because you're putting your practice at risk.
Right.
And you may save a couple of pennies, but it's not worth it. And so we vet the companies very carefully. The 3 dealers for consumables on our list are AmTouch, Pure Life, and Darby, and they're all authorized dealers. So our members know everything's been vetted for quality and safety.
Right. Yeah, that's great. Again, I didn't know what that meant. So that's really some good information. And I'm sure it's kind of the same thing as like, oh, I'm sure I can, just go out on, wherever, I this random site to buy stuff. And, like anything, maybe you're getting the Prada purse, maybe you're not.
Well, and I think, Jill, if it's something like paper towels and tray covers and things like that, you can save. But if it's something critical, something you're using on the patients, there was a couple of years ago, a patient that actually had an adverse reaction from Septicane. And one of the companies on my list got a call from attorneys.
Wow.
Attorneys, and they wanted to know if the product had come from them. We could tell because of the lot numbers it had not, and it was a gray market company.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it's really important, that you buy products that are quality and that they're safe for your patients.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, such good information. All right, Mari. Well, we are going to wrap it up here. This has just been So wonderful. I mean, I just love working with you. You're a great friend of mine, but also I just think what you are bringing to our industry for our doctors, especially for, the group that I focus a lot on, those acquisitions, those younger doctors, those new team members. Thank you. Thank you for just providing a really great platform for docs to go in, and if they work it, they're going to save. And I think you've already shown us that, it's low hanging fruit. If we just pay attention to how often we order, I think our takeaways are make a list. How often are you ordering? And, really where we need to be keeping our overhead at. And it is attainable to shoot for that 3 to 5%. So I think that that's wonderful.
I think
So
one other thing, Jill, I'm just going to
Mhm.
throw this in real quick,
Yeah.
because this is a big one, and it's not really ordering, but it's a company that saves our members. This past week, we just hit the 2 million mark in savings. And what they do is they go in and they look at your credit card charges, and then they negotiate to bring them down. And somebody had posted about it in the group this past week, and somebody had said, it's the easiest money I ever made. And so there's a lot of savings there. And so we try to look at not just things you buy for your practice, but things to help you promote your practice, consultants like you, ordering systems, software, office furniture, things to help you get organized. We really try to encompass just about everything that orthodontist is going to need. So
yeah, I love that. And you are right. That is a huge pearl. I usually tell my docs they need to be and especially once they get going, they need to be looking at their, credit card charges, at least every couple years, because those companies, what they start you at, I absolutely guarantee you will not be at that. And if you're really scrutinizing it, you're going to look back and go, huh, what's that charge?
Right.
Didn't see that charge before.
When you start, and they hide them. I mean, merchant cost consulting, once they did ours and we got it down to a reasonable rate, literally the next month, they hit us with a $10 per swipe charge. Crazy. And we got it. I mean, it's amazing though, what goes on behind the scenes. And, we're not a typical group purchasing organization. We don't take any part of the sale. We don't take 2% on up to 20. We don't take anything. We don't charge companies to be on the list, to advertise in our newsletter. Our philosophy is we're going to tell you who we think is the best product, best price, save you money. But my trainers and all, my whole team, none of us are on commission. And the reason we don't do it that way is not only because the credibility, but if we did, it means the end price to the doctor is going to be more because the companies still have to, business to make money. And if there's a middle person taking 2 to 5 or 10%, they can't discount as much.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's great. And I think that's great too, to just, totally put that out there too, because I'm sure there are people that ask that or have wondered about that as well. So I think that that's wonderful. And I do want to say one more thing too. I think that's a real asset too, is the Facebook group that you have. That's something that, I can see as such an asset too. People can get on there and ask questions. And I know you and your team are great about answering things, right away, or being like, hey, we're going to have a deal coming up, or, this, that, or the other. And I think sometimes it's nice to just know there's somebody out there that you can ask a question to, especially in this realm, and, get an answer that's an unbiased answer, which I think is also, super helpful as well, because again, like I said, there's no kickback, there's no, nothing that we're worrying about there also. So thank you. Well, we're going to finish this up here. We're going to spin this around a little bit and do something a little fun. We're going to do it my Hey Doc speed round. So are you ready to accept the challenge of the speed round? All right, here we go. Favorite ice cream?
Haagen-Dazs coffee.
Oh, me too, girlfriend. Me too. Have you ever worn socks with sandals?
Oh, no. I'd be thrown out of Texas if I did that.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
Ah, okay. Is double dipping ever acceptable?
Probably with my husband.
Texas was the first place I ever went to where they actually set down two separate salsa bowls. And I was like, that's interesting. So anyways, all right. Do you wear a retainer every night?
No, when my contacts start to open, I'll put it on. I have a little bolt-in discrepancy. And so behind my cuspids, it starts getting stuck, the retainer goes in.
How would you rate your karaoke skills on a scale of 1 to Beyonce?
Ooh, 6, maybe.
All right. Tomatoes, are they a fruit or a vegetable?
Oh, that's easy. I'm a gardener. It's a fruit.
What show have you been watching lately?
I'm a big Wheel of Fortune fan. I don't watch a lot of television though. I'll do that after the day is over.
That's the brain drain, right?
Yeah.
Brain drain.
And I'm a big Yellowstone fan. I can't wait for it to be back.
Oh, it's coming. All right. What podcast or audio book or music have you been listening to lately?
Oh wow. I listen to a lot of music. Bruno Mars, love him.
Okay. Yeah.
Willie, of course.
Hey, of course. That's great. And then last one, if you were to name one big, hairy, audacious goal you have for yourself, for your business in 2022, what's that?
A big one for us is we're moving to a new CRM.
Oh, that is a big one.
It's a big one. Yeah. Andy's helping us and Emily are both working on that right now. And I have actually more than one. We're going to Gorp this year for the first time.
Oh, that's wonderful. Wonderful. Well, congratulations on that. That's great. Well, again, Mari, I just want to say thank you so much for being a part of this Hey Docs episode. I think you've given us just some great information. I know the doctors that are listening are really going to eat this up and have some pearls to take away. So until next time, thank you very much.
Thanks, Jill. Appreciate you.